In the first frames of the movie, the protagonist talks about his great-grandfather. He and his wife had 57 things, but when World War I came, all they had left was their faith in God. The grandparents had already amassed 200 things, but with the arrival of Hitler, they were left with nothing. Yet their belief in the future kept them from despair. The parents owned as many as 650 things, but they too were not happy. A modern person, on average, possesses 10,000 things every day, along with freedom and a future. But what do they really value among these? Paul, a young, successful developer, wakes up to the voice of a cheerful girl. Unfortunately, it's just a virtual assistant, whose voice Paul created himself to alleviate his loneliness. One floor below, Tom, Paul's best friend and partner, wakes up. His morning is much more active than his friend's. Sports, a shower, fresh coffee, and facial and hair treatments to help maintain his youth and beauty. When the neat and prepared Tom comes to pick up his friend before an important interview, Paul is just finishing amusing himself, lying in bed. With some effort, Tom helps him choose one of his many suits and a pair of new sneakers, of which he has nearly 100 pairs, and then they finally rush out of the house. At the interview, it turns out there are about 1,000 young geniuses like this duo, each believing their invention to be special. But still, Tom and Paul manage to impress David Zuckerman, the head of a major company. Though this leads to a conflict between the friends, it turns out Tom had conducted research behind his friend's back using the voice assistant to find people's weaknesses, with the creator of the artificial intelligence, Paul himself, as the main subject. The friends go to celebrate their success at a nightclub, but Paul can't shake off his friend's words about consumerism. Eventually, after having too many strong drinks, he makes a bet that within 100 days, he and Tom can manage without anything that surrounds them. Waking up the next morning with nothing at all, Paul doesn't immediately remember what happened the night before, but Tom quickly reminds him of the evening's events when he announced in front of everyone that the first to give up would hand over half of his belongings to their subordinates. Now all the guys have is a key to a storage unit where they can choose just one item per day. The first thing the men take is clothing, as their colleagues decide not to make any concessions. Paul wraps himself in a warm fur coat, while Tom chooses a sleeping bag to help him not freeze in the fierce frost. Indeed, the friends had to run to the storage without clothes, greatly surprising the homeless and neighbors they encountered along the way. Paul tries to sneak in some extra items, but Tom refuses to risk their jointly earned possessions and makes his friend return everything to the warehouse. Paul's parents come to visit their son and learn about the bet. To the son's surprise, they support the idea, seeing it as a strong political action aimed at freeing from consumerism and reevaluating values. A week passes. Fortunately, by this time, the guys have accumulated some essentials, but while Tom chooses items that help him live more comfortably, the first thing Paul picks is a smartphone with the virtual assistant Nana, with whom he plans to chat in his free time. The young men meet Lucy at the storage facilities, an extraordinary beauty who watches the friends challenge with interest. Tom immediately takes decisive action and asks the girl out on a date, not giving his friend time to even understand what is happening. For the date, Tom arrives wearing glasses but without pants, as his contact lenses didn't survive the bet and his eyes are red. The dinner itself looks equally strange. Food made without salt or pepper is not at all what the girl had planned to try. Nevertheless, the couple manages to create a romantic atmosphere and have a heartfelt conversation. However, Tom's story about being a millionaire causes the girl to laugh. The empty apartment clearly didn't look like a luxurious flat. The evening becomes more candid, and the young people are about to share their first kiss when Paul decides to interrupt their privacy. Tom doesn't waste time with his friend and kicks him out the door, eventually getting his way and staying with his new girlfriend for the night. Paul goes to visit his elderly grandmother, who tells him a lot about the war and how she once had to flee with just one suitcase. From the conversation, the guy concludes that happiness is not in things, and he finds it much easier to cope with the unusual period. The day comes to meet with the founder of a large company who is very keen to buy the app developed by Paul. But Tom decides to take a risk and offers the millionaire the entire company instead of just one app, asking for 14 million euros, and he agrees. A conflict flares up between the friends because Tom made such a decision without consulting, but the guy is so confident in his rightness that he doesn't even feel the need to explain. Moreover, Tom is also confident in winning the bet, thinking that Paul will soon break and return to his old lifestyle. The argument between the friends leads them to harden the terms of the bet. Paul knows that Tom occasionally gets some minor help in items and now sets a condition that from this day, any indulgences are excluded, and if someone is caught doing so, the bet is lost. Moreover, the stakes are raised, and the guys put the entire company on the line. Paul learns that his grandmother has been hospitalized, and after she is discharged, his parents will send her to a nursing home. The guy is very upset about this, but refuses the money offered by his mother for cigarettes for his grandmother to not break the rules, even knowing no one would see him, which pleases his mother greatly. Visiting his relative in the hospital, Paul sees Lucy, who enters the therapist's office. Waiting for the girl, the man finds out that she has long struggled with an addiction. Only she wasn't suffering from strong drinks or illegal substances, but from constantly buying a huge number of unnecessary things. Paul goes to the dumpster at night to pick a couple of apples for a late dinner. To the guy's surprise, several expensive cars gather around him, one of which was driven by the same founder of the large company who wants to buy the app. Zuckerman offers the guy to get rid of unnecessary people so as not to share his profit with them and join him. As a guarantee, he even hands the developer a bought ticket. Only Paul feels a catch in all this, and besides, he dislikes the idea for which the magnate wants to get Nana. According to the millionaire, with this artificial intelligence, people can be made to buy everything they don't need, and moreover, people will want to do it themselves. Since the virtual assistant Nana resembles a personality that easily adapts to each user and becomes their best friend, always suggesting new products on store shelves and why they need to be purchased immediately. Lucy's garage is described because it turns out the girl has a lot of debt, and Tom is convinced that it all happened with Paul's help. The friends have another fight, which have become regular since the bet started. Paul remembers that he has the girl's number in his phone, and Tom could call her, but this idea only convinces him more that it was all designed to make him break, take an extra item like the phone, and lose. Tired of the constant quarrels with his friend, Paul decides to give up, but upon arriving home, he finds his mother on the steps and immediately understands from her face that something tragic has happened to his grandmother. Tom tracks down Lucy and tells her that Paul turned her into the bailiffs, but the girl just laughs, as she had informed the necessary parties herself because she was tired of running and hiding. Moreover, she has now been officially declared ill and assigned a guardian. But the main reason Tom came was to tell her that he won and could now easily cover her debts and return her property. Returning home, Tom sees all his things that Paul had returned to his apartment, but no one has seen his friend, and colleagues are starting to worry. Tom decides to find out from his friend's parents where they think he has disappeared to. There, he learns about the old lady's death, who was like a grandmother to him, and that Paul flew to California first class, which means someone paid for his trip. But arriving at his friend's apartment, Tom learns something else from the neighbors. One of the residents is upset that Paul can't fix his car, which constantly leaks oil. Meanwhile, Paul has settled somewhere by the river and didn't expect his friend could find him there. The men talk at length, and it turns out the reason for all their quarrels is Paul's first love, whom Tom stole from him. The man admits he was simply envious of his friend because he didn't have a real family or the life that Paul had, so he really wanted to take something away from him. Having cleared the air, the guys finally manage to reconcile. The company gathers at a party dedicated to Paul's loss, but Tom also declares that he didn't win the bet, so the entire amount will be evenly split among everyone. Besides this, the guys propose to their colleagues to create a new project, but this time not on a phone, but on land somewhere outside the city. As the company discusses where to spend the millions, it turns out that Zuckerman himself released Nana, and now he won't pay the developers for collaboration and will likely shut down the company to avoid competition. All the bosses can do to help the team is distribute all the equipment that can be sold. Lucy leaves the house and sees a desk right in the middle of the street, followed by a line of office furniture. Moving along the improvised arrows, the girl ends up in the forest where Tom, once again temporarily abandoning clothing, is waiting for her. The guy confesses to his girlfriend that he's ready to accept her even with her psychological diagnosis, and he himself has a bunch of issues for which it would be good to see a psychotherapist. He also mentions that he no longer has any money. Packing only the essentials into an old car, Tom, Paul, and Lucy set off to travel, knowing that what they have is enough for complete happiness. Sitting on the ocean shore, the group discusses the lost project, but Paul, smiling mysteriously, hints that he has done something that will prevent Zuckerman from getting rich off their app. Using his personal friendship with the artificial intelligence, the guy arranged with Nana that at a certain time, she would directly address the users and tell them what data the app really collects and how many unnecessary items they buy, becoming victims of clever advertising. Just as Paul finishes telling his friends about his plans, the phone rings and Nana confirms that she has fulfilled all her creator's requests. The film ends there.